This happened a few weeks ago. I was 34 and worked as a janitor in a busy city hospital. My shifts were usually chaotic, filled with the sounds of machines and voices echoing off the walls. I never minded the noise. It was a part of the job. But one night, everything changed. I was cleaning up after a particularly long shift. My mop squeaked as I pushed it against the floor near the nurse's station. That's when I heard laughter. Curiosity got the better of me, and I strained to listen. The ER doctors were sharing stories about odd patients. I had seen a lot of strange things myself, but nothing like what they talked about. One doctor shared a tale about a man who swore he was being followed by a shadowy figure. I felt a chill creep up my spine. He said the man claimed he could see this figure outside the windows at night. The room fell quiet after that. I could feel the tension. Maybe it wasn't as funny as I thought. After that night, I couldn't forget the story. I started looking for that man when I worked. I felt like I was chasing a ghost, but I was drawn to it. I even lingered near the ER, hoping to catch more tales. What if there was truth behind those stories? Days turned into nights, and I began to notice patterns among other patients. They spoke of unexplainable sounds, of someone watching them. One man talked about a face that wasn't his own staring back in the mirror. It all felt so strange, like pieces of a puzzle I wasn't sure how to fit together. My mind raced every time I left. I lost sleep thinking about what I'd heard. The laughs from the ER changed, becoming sinister in my ears. I wondered if I was losing my grip. Were these patients really sick, or did they see something I didn't? Maybe they were all telling the same truth, wrapped in fear. Then one night, I made a decision. I would listen closer. I stood by the nurse's station, my heart pounding. A doctor called for a patient. My stomach dropped when I saw him walk in, the very man from the story about the shadow. I should have turned away. The air felt thick, pressing against me. I didn't know why, but I felt connected to him. Then I heard a voice say, "Why are you looking at me?" I spun around, but nobody was there. Just empty hallways and sterile walls. My skin prickled as panic washed over me. Was I losing my mind, or had I opened a door I couldn't close? The laughter from earlier echoed in my head, but now it felt mocking, taunting. I looked back at the man. He was staring at me with wide, fearful eyes. I backed away slowly, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I grabbed my mop and hurried to the nearest exit. My heart raced as I left the ER behind. I didn't understand what was happening. All I knew was that I was in deeper than I ever wanted to be. The next day, I was back at the hospital, though it felt different. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me, brighter than before. I couldn't shake the image of that man's terrified eyes. Each corner I turned made me jump, expecting to see something lurking just out of sight. I went through my shifts like a zombie, scrubbing floors and emptying trash cans, but my mind was elsewhere. I had to find out more. I needed to know if I was the only one feeling this way. During lunch, I sat in the break room, trying to act casual. I overheard two nurses discussing the latest admissions. "You hear about that guy in room 402? One said. He's convinced his reflection is talking to him. Swears it wants to take his place." My stomach twisted. I can't be alone in this, I thought. I cleared my throat and asked, "What do you think it means?" The nurses exchanged looks filled with concern. "Probably just stress or something. You know how people get," the other replied quickly. But I saw the worry in her eyes. That night, I leaned against the nurse's station again, avoiding eye contact with the doctors. I couldn't help myself. I slipped into a darkened hallway, where shadows seemed to cling to the walls. A sudden chill rushed over me. I was sweating, but the air was cold. Maybe I'm getting paranoid, I muttered to myself. I turned to head back, but then I heard it, a faint whisper repeating the same phrase over and over. "Help me." I froze, my breath caught in my throat. "Who is there?" I called out, heart racing. Silence answered me. My heart hammered in my chest again as I took a small step forward, unsure if I should run or investigate. The whisper persisted, almost as if it were leading me deeper into the maze of hallways. I followed the sound until I reached a door marked with a bright red staff-only sign. My gut twisted with fear, but I found myself pushing it open. Inside, the area was dark and lined with old medical equipment. Dust hung in the air like fog. As I stepped in, the whisper grew louder, turning into a desperate plea. "Help me. Please." I turned on the light, illuminating a room filled with forgotten tools and rusting beds. The atmosphere felt heavy, like something had been trapped there for years. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Then I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. I spun around, and that's when I saw it, a shadow. It moved along the wall, blending into the darkness as if it were alive. I blinked hard, hoping it would vanish. But it didn't. Someone was in the room with me. My stomach dropped as the shadow coiled and twisted, forming a shape, almost like the man from the ER. A voice just barely above a whisper echoed in my ears, "You should have listened." All fear washed away, replaced by a raw surge of adrenaline. I dashed for the door, my heart racing as I slammed it behind me. I didn't look back. As I left, panic clouded my mind. What was happening? Why was I seeing things? I had to get answers before it was too late. The next day, I decided to do something drastic. I couldn't keep wandering the hospital, pretending everything was normal. I needed to confront my fears. So, during my break, I rushed to room 402, the one with the patient who thought his reflection was talking to him. I had to know what had happened to him. As I approached the door, my heart thudded harder in my chest. What if he said something scary? What if his eyes were just like the man I saw in the shadows? I took a deep breath and knocked. A weak voice called from inside. "Come in." I opened the door slowly. The room was dim, curtains drawn tight. The man lay in bed, a thin sheet pulled up to his chin. His eyes were wide and haunted. "You're the one from the ER," he said, barely moving. Yes, I hesitated. "I wanted to see how you were doing. They said you were having trouble." He nodded slowly, like every movement drained him. "It knows I'm here. It's watching." I stepped further inside, intrigued despite my fear. "What do you mean? What's watching?" He stared at me, his gaze filled with desperation. "My reflection. I can see it making faces at me. It's not me. I'm telling you, it wants to take my place." A chill crept down my spine. I glanced around, half expecting to see something lurking behind his bed. "Maybe it's stress or no." He interrupted, a sudden energy surging through him. "You have to believe me. It happened to others like before. They think they're okay, but they're not." Questions pounded in my head. "What do you mean, others?" He leaned forward, a frantic look on his face. "They won't tell you. The staff. They think it's madness. But it's happening again." I felt a shiver of recognition. I remembered the way the nurses exchanged worried glances. What happened to them? He opened his mouth as if to answer, but then clutched his head, grimacing. "Stop it. Stop them from taking me." Panic pulsed through me. Who? Who needs to be stopped? The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to grow darker. Just then, the door creaked open behind me. I spun around, and there stood one of the doctors, an icy glare on his face. "You shouldn't be in here." I felt frozen, caught between the doctor and the man in bed, who was now muttering to himself, panic rising in his voice. "You'll see. You'll become one of them." The doctor stepped forward, but his eyes shifted, glancing past me and into the room. I turned back, my breath catching. The man's reflection in the mirror on the wall rippled, shimmered, and suddenly, it felt alive. Everything went dark. I stumbled backward, the world around me flickering like a faulty light. When the lights buzzed back on, the man was screaming, his voice almost drowned out by my own racing thoughts. I dashed past the doctor, my mind reeling. I couldn't stay here. Something was happening, but I didn't know what. I had to find out more. The threat was real, and it was coming for me next. I burst out of room 402, heart racing. I couldn't shake the image of the man shrieking in terror, his eyes wide with an unfathomable fear. I sprinted down the hall, ignoring the bewildered stares of nurses and doctors. I needed a place to catch my breath and sort through the chaos in my head. Rounding a corner, I stumbled into the staff lounge. It was empty, dim, and quiet. I leaned against the wall, trying to process everything. What was happening to that man? What were the others he mentioned? My thoughts raced back to the images of the shadowy figures I had seen before. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a nurse stepped in. She looked startled but quickly masked it with a friendly demeanor. "Hey there. You okay?" I stuttered, still shaken. "Did you hear that man screaming? In 402? Her face changed in an instant. A shadow flickered behind her eyes. "We don't talk about patients like that. It's against protocol." "Protocol?" I pressed. But he was scared for his life. He said there is something wrong with him, something watching him. And he mentioned others. What did he mean? She hesitated, her expression shifting from friendly to wary. "You shouldn't get involved with what is happening in there." It's best if her voice cut off as she glanced over my shoulder. I turned, the air crackling with tension. It felt as if someone was standing right behind me. But when I whipped around, the room was empty. "Did you see?" I started, but she was shaking her head, her eyes filled with fear. "I can't. I have to go," she said, backing away, clearly unsettled. "Wait. Please." I reached for her arm, but she slipped away, disappearing through the door. I was alone again, but the weight of her fear lingered. Why was everyone so tight-lipped? What were they scared of? My legs felt weak as I contemplated my next move. Then I remembered the mirror in room 402. I needed to see it. Something was off about it, like it was connected to the man's experience. I left the lounge, moving deeper into the hospital, heading back to room 402 against every instinct screaming for me to turn back. As I approached, the fluorescent lights flickered overhead. My pulse quickened. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room felt heavy, and the man was gone. In his place, the bed was neatly made, empty. The mirror on the wall caught my eye, strangely alluring and disturbing at the same time. I stared at my reflection, half expecting it to morph like the man had described. But it remained unchanged. I took a step closer. That's when I saw it. Something flickered beyond my own reflection. A dark shape, a shadow. My breath hitched as I squinted, the chill creeping back into my spine. I could feel it pressing against the glass, as if it wanted to come through. Then I heard a whisper, soft and breathy. "Help me!" I stumbled back, terror flooding my veins. I wasn't ready for whatever this was. I had to get out, but as I turned, the door slammed shut. I was trapped. My heart raced as a new feeling settled in. Time was running out. The mirror seemed to grow darker, the shadow forming a shape more defined. My heart thundered in my chest, and panic surged as I pressed my back against the cold wall. I was losing my grip on reality. "Get a grip," I whispered to myself, desperately trying to quell the panic rising within me. I had to think. I turned back to the mirror for a moment, half expecting it to show some ghastly figure. Instead, all I saw was myself, pale and frightened. But the whisper had launched a barrage of questions in my mind. Who did the voice belong to? Was it the man from 402? The room felt smaller, enclosing me. I couldn't just stand there, I needed to find a way out. I reached for the door handle, pulling and pushing frantically, but the door wouldn't budge. I pressed my ear against the cold wood, listening for any sign of help. What if no one could hear me? The whisper returned, more insistent this time. Help me before it's too late. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just desperation I heard, it was a warning. Who are you? I called out, my voice trembling. What do you need? The shadows in the mirror seemed to churn. I stepped back, glancing around the room for anything that could help. I spotted a small first aid kit on a shelf. I snatched it up, my fingers shaking. As I rummaged through it, my mind raced. I needed to know what I was dealing with. The man had talked about others. Were there more like him suffering? Were they trapped here in this hospital because of whatever malevolent force was behind the mirror? Suddenly, the shadow behind the glass twisted violently, and I heard a loud crash echo from the hallway. I flinched, adrenaline pumping through my veins. Footsteps surged, heavy and hurried, but they were moving away from me. My heart sank further. Were they abandoning me? Help me! The voice cried again, desperate and pained. It was frantic, and I could feel its urgency reverberating in my chest. Something was very wrong and I was in way over my head. Then, the mirror began to pulse, a rhythmic throbbing illuminating the shadows within. I saw flashes of faces, women and men, their expressions twisted in fear. I could no longer ignore what was happening. I stepped closer to the mirror, as if it had its own gravitational pull. What do you want? I asked, desperation creeping into my tone. That's when everything went dark. The flash of cold air prickled my skin, and the room whirled around me. I reached out, feeling for stability, but the ground beneath me vanished. I was enveloped in a swirling void, and the last echoes of the voice filled my ears. You have to choose before it's too late. Suddenly, the floor reappeared beneath me, but I was no longer in room 402. I was somewhere else, somewhere darker. And I was not alone. I stood in a dimly lit hallway, the flickering fluorescent lights above casting eerie shadows against the peeling walls. My heart raced, but I couldn't tell if it was from fear or adrenaline. I looked around, trying to make sense of where I was. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, and the distant echo of laughter and cries made my skin crawl. This was not an ordinary hospital, it felt like a living nightmare. Hello? I called, my voice barely above a whisper. The sound echoed down the hall, swallowed by the darkness. There was no reply, just the unsettling silence that seemed to stretch on forever. I took a step forward, the floor cold beneath my feet. With every cautious movement, I felt the weight of the shadows pressing in. The voice had promised help, but all I felt was dread. What had I walked into? Suddenly, a door to my right creaked open. Instinctively, I stepped back, holding my breath. A figure emerged, barely visible in the gloom. It was a woman, her hair disheveled and her clothes tattered. She looked as lost as I felt, confusion etched on her face. Who are you? She asked, her voice shaky. What are you doing here? I started to explain, but before I could say more, she took a step back, eyeing me warily. You have to be careful. They're watching, she warned, raising her finger to her lips. Who's watching? I was desperate for information. What happened to the voice? What do I need to choose? Her eyes widened, and she looked toward the hallway, panic flooding her features. You shouldn't have come here, she gasped. It's too late for me, don't let them take you. Her words sent a chill down my spine. What kind of place was this? What danger lurked in the shadows? Before I could ask her anything else, she turned and darted back through the door, slamming it shut behind her. I felt a surge of panic. I wanted answers, but her warning only left me with more questions. I turned back towards the hallway, and that s when I noticed the flicker of the lights intensifying. Something was coming closer. I moved quickly, searching for an escape, a window, anything. As I rushed down the corridor, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, a dark figure watching me from the end of the hallway. It stood motionless, shrouded in shadows. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. Then it moved. Before I could scream, the figure lunged at me, and I stumbled back, the hallway stretching endlessly before me. Choose. A voice demanded, but it was no longer the previous whisper. This was a roar, echoing through my mind. Chaos erupted around me as the lights buzzed violently. I clutched my head, reeling from the intensity of it all. I had to decide, was this place truly real, or was I just lost in a nightmare that wouldn't end? And then I saw it. At my feet, a small, glimmering object lay on the floor. I reached down, fear mingling with curiosity, desperation curbing my caution. I had to know what it was, but as I reached for it, the air grew colder. That's when the figure stepped forward again, and I realized I wasn't alone. And whatever choice I had to make, it was about to become deadly serious. I lunged for the glimmering object, my fingertips brushing against its surface. As I lifted it, my heart sank. It was a key, old and tarnished, an intricate design etched into the metal. It felt impossibly heavy in my hand, like it carried a weight of its own. The figure loomed closer, its form slowly emerging from the shadows. I could make out twisted features, eyes glinting like cold steel, filled with a hunger I couldn't understand. My instincts screamed to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Choose. It bellowed again, this time more insistent. Freedom or fate? Confusion mixed with fear as I held the key tightly. Freedom sounded good, but fate? I had no idea what it meant. My mind raced back to the woman, her warning echoed in my head. Don't let them take you. I couldn't stay. I had to know what the key unlocked. It had to be a way out, didn't it? But then again, the voice warned me. Was I making a choice, or was I just walking deeper into a trap? Just as panic surged through me, the walls began to shudder. The lights flickered again, and I could feel the air thickening, like the space around me was constricting. I took a step back, my instincts screaming at me to run, but I needed answers. Who are you? I shouted, voice trembling. What do you want? The figure grinned. I am your guide, it growled, twisting into a grotesque shape. You must choose wisely before the darkness consumes you. With every word, I felt the temperature drop, the shadows growing longer. I turned and ran down the hall, desperation driving me forward. My mind raced as I thought about the key still clutched in my hand. Suddenly, I spotted a door at the far end of the corridor, just in sight through the darkness. I sprinted toward it, pushing through the chill that threatened to pull me back. The key's weight felt like an anchor, but it was my only hope. I reached the door, slamming my palm against its wooden surface. I needed to know if the key could help me escape this nightmare. I fumbled with the cold metal, inserting it into the lock. My hands shook as I turned it, heart racing with hope and terror. The lock clicked, and I pushed the door open, ready for anything that awaited me. But what lay beyond wasn't what I expected. It was another hallway, identical to the one I had just left, but something was different. The air felt lighter, and the distant laughter had transformed into whispers, soft and melodic, like some kind of beckoning song. Welcome back, a different voice said, echoing from within the shadows. Now you can choose again. Everything around me blurred. I hadn't escaped. I had stepped into another layer of this torment, but how was I supposed to know which path led to safety? And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me, heavy and deliberate. Turning, I braced myself as the dark figure stepped through the doorway, its eyes narrowing on me. I had to choose again. Would I find my way to freedom, or would I be swallowed by the shadows once and for all? The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like smoke. I felt a pulse of panic surging within as the figure stepped closer, its presence blocking my exit. The hallway felt like a trap closing in. "What do you want?" I stammered, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Ah, the eternal question," it hissed, its mouth twisting into a horrifying grin. "I'm here to help you make your choice." I remembered the key, still heavy in my palm. Maybe it unlocked not just a door, but answers. Fear clawed at my chest, but I pushed it aside. "What choice?" "The choice between freedom and fate," it repeated, moving closer, its eyes shimmering with malice. "You can leave this world behind, or you can embrace what's coming." The word sent a shiver down my spine. I felt drawn to the whispers, but they felt intoxicating and dangerous, like a siren's call. I had to decide quickly. Then everything changed. A loud crash echoed from the far end of the hallway, like glass shattering. It jolted me, breaking the tension. I turned in the direction of the sound and saw a dim light flicker at the end. "What was that?" I asked, my heart racing. The figure didn't answer, its gaze fixed on me, as if sizing up my next move. I needed a plan. The whispers were no longer inviting, they felt urgent, almost desperate. They tugged at my mind, urging me to move toward the light. But the figure stood in my way like a wall of darkness. Gathering my courage, I dashed past it, heading toward the light. My instincts kicked in, urging me to flee. I could feel the figure's eyes boring into my back, the weight of its presence heavy and suffocating. I didn't look back. When I reached the source of the light, I found a window, cracked and dirty. A glimmer of moonlight streamed through. I pressed my hands against the glass, desperate to break free. But when I looked closer, I realized it was fogged over, and I could barely see outside. "Help!" I screamed, slamming my fists against the window, but my voice felt swallowed by the darkness. Behind me, I heard the figure laugh, a sound that sent chills throughout my body. "You think escaping is that easy?" I was losing my grip on reality. My eyes darted around the room, searching for another way out. That's when I saw it on the floor next to the window, something glinting in the dim light. Another key? No, it was smaller, almost delicate. I crouched down, reaching for it, but as my fingers brushed against its cool surface, the whispers intensified, and the shadows began to swirl faster. I felt a pull, as if the darkness wanted to drag me back into its depths. I had to make a choice quickly, confront the figure or take my chance with the promising light and the key at my fingertips. And just as I made my decision, the room trembled violently. The walls shook, and I realized I might not have any time left. The figure lunged at me, a shadow racing toward the light. What was the right choice? I had to act now, or I might lose everything. The moment the figure lunged at me, time warped. I had only a heartbeat to react. Without thinking, I grabbed the delicate key and hurled it toward the window. The metal soared through the air, catching the shimmer of moonlight, and in that instant, a shattering sound echoed. The glass exploded outward, showering the floor with fragments. Bright moonlight flooded the room, illuminating every shadow. I bolted for the opening, adrenaline surging through me. The whispers felt almost frantic now, as if they were pleading for me to stay. But I couldn't. I clambered through the jagged window frame, feeling the glass cut into my palms. I managed to pull myself onto the ledge just as the figure crashed against the sill, a dark mass that couldn't follow me into the light. I dropped down onto the grass outside. The cool night air wrapped around me like a blanket, and I gasped, trying to catch my breath. I looked up at the open window, half expecting the figure to appear. But it didn't. The night was eerily quiet. I took a moment to scan my surroundings. I was standing in a strange yard, filled with overgrown bushes and twisted trees. The moonlight revealed a path leading into a dense forest. It felt both inviting and ominous. I was free, but where was I? With every step, the thrill of escape pulsed through me, but my mind raced with questions. Where was the figure? Was it coming for me? As I ran down the path, I caught sight of something mirroring my panic, a figure standing in the distance, partially obscured by shadows. My stomach dropped. No, not again, I whispered to myself. I was terrified. Part of me wanted to keep running, but curiosity mixed with fear. I hesitated, torn between fleeing into the unknown or confronting whatever lurked ahead. "Help me," a soft voice echoed from beyond the trees. It sounded desperate, almost familiar. Instinctively, I stepped closer, despite every warning signal screaming in my head. I had to know. I had to see who or what needed help. As I moved forward, the whispers returned, swirling around me, louder this time. They seemed to guide me toward the voice, a blend of anguish and hope. That's when I noticed something shimmering on the ground. Another key? No, this one was different. It glowed faintly, pulsing with an inner light. I could feel its warmth as I reached down to touch it. The moment my fingertips brushed against the smooth surface, the whispers changed. "Take it," they urged, more insistent than before. "With this, you can change fate." The figure ahead flickered, the shadows shifting around it. My heart raced, every instinct screamed to run back, to escape. But what if I could turn this around? What if this key was more than just a trinket? The figure straightened up, revealing a familiar face. I felt a rush of recognition, someone I thought I had lost. Was this a trick? Did I dare move forward? I swallowed hard, ready to make another choice. In this dark expanse, uncertainty loomed thicker than ever. I had to decide, was I bold enough to face the truth, or would I turn away, back to the safety of the unknown? I hesitated, heart pounding. Was that truly the figure of someone I knew? Someone I thought had vanished forever? The familiarity tugged at my consciousness, tempting me to approach, to reach out and grasp what might have been lost. But with every step forward, the whispers intensified, wrapping around me like a vice. "Take it," they urged again, the voice a blend of tantalizing sincerity and chilling foreboding. "With this, you can change fate." I held the glowing key tightly in my hand, its warmth contrasting sharply with the icy fingers of doubt creeping into my mind. Questions swirled within me, each demanding attention. What if this was a trap? What if fate was something I shouldn't toy with? But then again, what if this was my only chance for resolution? The figure moved closer, the shadows gradually yielding to a soft light. I could see their face more clearly now, their features etched with worry and longing. "Please," they urged, voice strained. "Help me. I've been waiting." Something broke within me. It was as if time itself held its breath, and I couldn't back away from this moment. They were reaching out, and I felt an inexplicable pull to respond. I stepped closer, heart racing as I questioned everything I thought I knew. "Is it really you?" I asked, my voice a mix of hope and fear. "Are you trapped?" "Yes," they replied, and I could see a flicker of something fear, but also a spark of familiarity. "But the key, it can define everything. Use it wisely." Their eyes shimmered with a plea, a desperate request for belief and action. I took another step forward, holding the key up as if it would illuminate the darkness surrounding us. "What do I need to do?" "Unlock the truth," they whispered, gesturing toward the dense thicket beyond. The shadows seemed almost alive, twisting and shifting, as if foreboding hidden dangers. My heart raced as I faced the glimmering key and the uncertainty it promised. Part of me wanted to run in the opposite direction, escape what I didn't understand. The other part yearned for resolution, for the chance to clarify the haze that had enveloped my reality for weeks. With every ounce of courage I possessed, I moved toward the tree line. If I'm going to do this, I thought, then I have to believe. In that moment, I understood something fundamental. It wasn't just about freeing the figure, it was also about confronting myself. I had to overcome the shadows that haunted me both inside and out. As I stepped into the dark foliage, I clutched the key tightly. The whispers swelled with excitement, guiding me. I could feel a path opening, but also the weight of the shadows tightening around me. Everything began to blur again. Was this the path to freedom or to my despair? That's when the laughter erupted around me, ringing like a chaotically orchestrated symphony of madness. I turned back, catching one last glimpse of the figure before the shadows shifted, congealing into a dark amalgam that threatened to consume everything. "Help me!" they called, echoing through the night. I stumbled back, uncertainty clawing at my stomach. I was torn between moving forward or retreating into the darkness that had become my sanctuary. A low rumbling chuckle arose from the depths beyond the trees, the air heavy with the promise of fate. I was at a crossroads, teetering on the brink of something. But just as I lost my grip, I remembered the warmth of the key in my palm. In a moment of clarity, I pressed forward, determined to choose my fate. I felt a surge of energy flow through me, a relentless push toward destiny. Whatever awaited, I would face it. And as I plunged deeper, the shadows receding before me, I realized one vital truth: some questions may never have answers, but courage, however fragile, would always lead me to the possible light of untold truths. I moved onward, toward the unknown, a newfound resolve propelling me forward. In the labyrinth of haunted corridors the echoes of whispers faded behind, but the thrill of discovery lay ahead. Somewhere within was the answer I sought, the intersection of truth and survival, a step closer to illuminating the darkness. I still think about that figure sometimes, their eyes haunting my dreams. Did I make the right choice? Was I courageous or reckless? But mostly, I try not to think about it, knowing that some shadows will always linger, enigmatic and resolute, waiting for someone else to find the courage to confront their truths.